30 years. 30. It's been 30 years. 30 years ago, George H.W. Bush was in office. Terminator 2 Judgment Day was in the theaters. And C+C Music Factory was rocking the Billboard charts 30 years ago. I'll tell you what I'm talking about in 2 minutes. But first, married guy. My name's Jeff, Westside Jeff. Sitting in for Chris Crock. Chris is off this week on vacation. I get a chance to sit here and give you common sense opinion on current events. That's what I do. I follow the news. I read the news. I watch it, pay attention to it. I analyze it. I process it. I'm a processor. I process it in my own mind. And then I get a chance to open up this microphone and sit in this studio where Chris is, normally sits, and share my opinion. And the beautiful thing about that is you and I have a conversation about it. And then you can weigh in on it across social media and by picking up the phone and calling. So I'm married, Mrs. Westside Jeff, and I've been married 29 years, 2 daughters. Danielle is 26 now, 27. She's a physical therapist. Lives up in Columbus, Ohio. That's where I was born and raised. Youngest daughter is 23. She'll be 24 in 2 months, Sydney. Sydney moved out of Ohio and down to Knoxville, Tennessee. So now she's up in Tennessee. Danielle knows what she wants to do all her life. She's always figured it out. She's driven. She got married a year and a half ago. Her husband Nick calls her MJ. MJ. He does. He refers to her. I've heard him say it many, many times. MJ. Mini Jeff. Because she is. She's mini me. She's driven. She's got a plan. She's got a path. She knows what she wants, and she goes and gets it. And she's assertive and aggressive at getting it. That's what she's like. She sees a target, and she goes and gets it. My youngest one, that's a whole different story. Sydney is the one that's going to have 15 jobs in 10 years and try to figure out what she wants to do the rest of her life. So a couple weeks ago, in Knoxville, they got a pretty significant snowstorm. Yes, Knoxville. Now, I didn't know it snowed there. I had to ask her about it and said, I didn't even know it snowed there. She said, Dad, I lived here for 3 years. It doesn't. They got a snowstorm that shut the city down. Well, about a week after the snowstorm, I'm going through my credit card bill online. I'm seeing $590 at a Kroger in Knoxville. I said to my wife, honey, you haven't been in Knoxville, up in Knoxville lately, and I haven't either. What the hell is this? She said, well, I've been meaning to tell you. She says, the snowstorm in Knoxville kept, Sydney, our youngest one, couldn't work for a couple of days. The city pretty much shut down. She went to the grocery store. She didn't have enough money, so she used our credit card to spend $590 in groceries. So officially for you, by the way, you can call me Jeff, or you can just call me bailer outer, because that's what I am. I'm a bailer outer. At what point in time do we as parents stop being bailer outers? I regularly talk to parents all the time who say, I'm a bailer outer too. Who was I talking to earlier today? Said, I just paid my kids, who's 30 years old. He said, I just paid my 30-year-old's automobile insurance because he didn't have enough to pay for it. I hear it all the time. Are you paying for stuff for your children still who are older children? A buddy of mine, Donnie G, said to me once, he said, Jeffrey, he calls me Jeffy. He said, Jeffy, you know the best thing about grandkids? I said, no, because he's 76 years old. He said, the taillights. He said, I love my grandkids. I love when they come visit. I love spending time with them. But then they get in the car and they leave. I get that. I understand that. And he's still a bailer outer at the age of 76. He's bailing out his 40-some-year-old daughter, and he's bailing out his grandkids, who are 20 years old. So I see it all the time, and I wonder, why is it we, as adults, who should be cruising closer to retirement, are still paying for stuff for our kids? Well, the reality, it comes down to what part of our problem is today, and that is, they talk about inflation, stagflation, shrinkflation, call all these names and terms that, unless you're a superstar economist, you can't quite figure it out. I just give you common sense opinion on current events, and my common sense is this. I make a very good living. I make a very good living. I make well above the average national income, but I'm poor. And a lot of you probably are in similar shoes as I am. You make good money, but you're poor. And you're poor because you have less spending power. And it comes down to the fact that once I get my income after taxes and after I invest in my 401 or whatever it is, my company deferred compensation plan, and then I make a car payment. I don't have a car payment. Most people do. Once I make my mortgage payment, once I pay for gas, electric, water, sewer, once I pay for my automobile insurance, homeowners insurance, and once I pay for my grocery bills and other things, I don't have anything left. Now, my income hasn't changed radically over the last 20 years. I make a very, very good living. But what has changed is when I used to have $3,000 or $4,000 left over at the end of the month, I don't now. And it's because of the cost of goods and services. Well, that resonates with this story, and that is it's been 30 years now. I mentioned a moment ago, 30 years. It's been 30 years since food ate up this much of your income. That's why you're a bailer-outer. That's why you feel like you don't have, you're living paycheck to paycheck. That's why you struggle with your personal finances. The last time Americans spent this much money on their food, George H.W. Bush was in office, Terminator 2 Judgment Day was in theaters, and C+C Music Factory was rocking in the Billboard charts. It's been 30 years. Eating continues to cost us more money, even as overall inflation has eased from blistering pace consumers endured throughout much of 2022 and 2023. Prices at restaurants alone, and other eateries were up 5.1% last month compared to January's 2023, so 5.1% over a year ago, while grocery costs increased 1.2% during the same period. Now, I went to a fast food restaurant, which I'll keep nameless at this point, with my buddy Earl 3 weeks ago. We walked in. We had a dressed up hot dog, each of us, and a small bowl of spaghetti. And both of us had a drink. And I walked out, put in, I think, $5 tip. I walked out spending $40 in a fast food restaurant. $40. And I got in the car and thought, wait, I had to pull my receipt out. Went, something's not right. For $40, I should have gone into a very nice sit-down restaurant, upscale bar food, gotten a really good burger, fries, I don't drink, a soda, and a dessert. For $40, I would think that's what we'd get. No, we went to a fast food restaurant, had almost a snack, and it was $40. Food is consuming more of our income than ever before. In the grocery stores and in restaurants. And relief isn't likely to arrive soon. Restaurant and food industry company executives said they're still grappling with rising labor costs and some ingredients, such as cocoa, that are only getting more expensive. Consumers said they will find ways to cope. That's what's going on in America. When you're feeling pain, when you're struggling and you feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's because of what I just went through. My daughter goes to the grocery store, her and her roommate, for basically a 5 or 6 day period and spent $590. I called her and said, what the hell is this? She went through it and said, I got this, and this. She sent me a screenshot of the receipt because I wanted to know, are you buying a crap ton of of expensive alcohol or something? No, it was just groceries. I was stunned. $600 almost for two people in a grocery store, basically for a week's worth of food. You want to know why you're living paycheck to paycheck or feel like you are? Food. And it comes back to what I just said out of the get-go, and that is it's been 30 years since food ate up this much of your income and my income. My question to you is this: are you going out to dinner less? Are you spending less in restaurants? How are you evaluating? How has your restaurant experience and going out been impacted by this? What have you changed? What have you done differently? How have you changed where you go, when you go, how often you go based off what's going on economically? I want to hear from you at 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. The name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 WBAP. Here tomorrow and here Friday. Chris is back on Monday. He's taking a week off. So he's not left. He's just taking a week off, and I get a chance to sit here and give you common sense opinion on current events. Talking about the fact I'm married, born and raised up in the state of Ohio, sitting here in the chair for Chris tonight in the studio. And I say that, first name basis, you can call me Jeff. But I'm also referred to as bailer outer, because I'm always seeming to being bailing out my kids. I remember when I got married and had kids, and I remember as my kids are growing older, I was thinking, you know what, there comes a time that I'll cut that string. There'll come a time where my kids will be self-sustaining. I never in my life really thought of a day where I'd still be paying for stuff for my kids. And I'm talking kids in their 20s. Never thought it'd be at this point where about 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a snowstorm comes through Knoxville, Tennessee, where my youngest daughter lives, up in Knoxville. Pretty much crippled the city for a couple days. If you've ever been snowbelt like that, then you understand the concept of white death. Television forecasters come on and tell you all day long you're going to have a big snowstorm. It's going to cripple the city, and you better go grocery shopping. So white death is coming. So everybody in the world stop, drop, and roll. They go to the grocery store, and it is packed. And by the end of the shopping session, every shelf is empty because people are hoarding and buying to get through a storm. So my daughter did that, thinking because they were going to close the city down. My youngest daughter, Sydney, goes to the grocery store, goes to Kroger. I look on my credit card. There's almost $600 purchase at Kroger. I called her and said, what the hell is this? Did you buy a bunch of expensive alcohol and like great prime ribs and stuff? She said no. Told me exactly what she bought. She went through a tirade about it. Was almost offended that I had to question her and ask her out about it. She sent me a picture of the receipt. I looked at it and went, no, yeah, that looks right. Yeah. Nothing abusive. Her and her roommate, 2 people, $600 for a grocery bill up in Knoxville, Tennessee. Probably enough to feed him for a week. I'm the bailer outer. She couldn't afford it for that 2-week period or week period because of what's going on. And it comes back to the story I'm talking about. That is, it's been 30 years since food, meaning going out to eat at restaurants, as well as food in the grocery stores, ate up this much of your income. Significant. Joe Biden had a comment about it during Super Bowl Sunday. I'll tell you about that in about 3 minutes. But first, I want to get to the call. 800-288-9227 is the phone number. It's 800-288-WBAP. Trevor from South Lake, you're on with Westside Jeff on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Thanks for calling.
Sure. Hey, Jeff. So, and I've never called into a radio station before, but when I heard the comment about bailing out, I wanted to make a comment that I'm not a bailer outer, and I was very clear with my children when they turned 21, once they got through college, that I was not their savior and I was not the person they come to for money. They're now adults. Now they're responsible for it. And so when rising costs occur, when challenges occur, then you are the one responsible. And my challenge is if we sit there and we're there with the lifeline for each of these kids, then they don't learn how to deal with challenging times. And so my children are 28, 27, 26, and 23. And once they turn 22, I haven't given them a dime. That doesn't mean I don't invite them out to dinner with us and things like that. But if they need to make sure they're adjusting their expenses, they don't go out to eat if you can't afford to go out to eat. You don't buy the best things at grocery stores if you can't go out, if you can't do that. You don't get in the better apartments if you can't do that. But you're an adult now, and again, I think that's a bit of a challenge with a lot of children and a lot of parents, that they allow that to occur and they don't hold their kids accountable for making sure they make it work in those situations. So that's my philosophy.
Trevor, I'm sitting here laughing the whole time you're talking because I'm thinking you're calling me an enabler. And you know what? You're right.
A bit, yeah, I am a little bit, yes.
There's a fine line between providing for and enabling your children. And you're right. By very nature of bailing her out, being a bailer outer, I'm enabling. I get it. I hear you. My real problem isn't just her. It's been Mrs. Westside Jeff who encourages bailer outer. Because if it were me,
yes,
I'd say
you need to be aligned with your spouse on that. And again, I'm a top.
I kind of like getting in bed with my wife every now and then, as opposed to my stuff in the front yard, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And again, we kind of get aligned. We're aligned on it, which is very important for that component. And again, I'm a top 1% earner, so I have plenty to provide them. But I think I was raised that you're responsible once you turn as an adult, and I feel the same way with my children.
Trevor, are you married?
I am. 30 years.
Is your wife on the same page with you?
100%. Yeah, we're very aligned on those components. Yes.
Can I give you and your wife my wife's number and try to have you talk her into it? I'm not a big old wussy. Yeah. I just can't quite convince her.
Yeah, it's a new slogan. Just say no.
Oh, I like it. I'm the harsh one, Trevor. I'm with you. I would normally say, sorry, guess you have to go work a third job. Sorry. I guess she's not living extravagantly. I can tell you that much. Her and her roommate split an apartment, and it's not, they're not spending $3,000 a month. I forget what their I think it's out of pocket costs of $800. She doesn't have a career yet. She graduated from college, doesn't know what she wants to do when she grows up, and she's in that stage. She's trying to figure it out.
Yeah, so that creates a lot more challenges. So each of my kids after college had a job and a career. And again, so we held them accountable they're now on their own. But if our circumstances are probably different than yours and some other parents where they don't have the careers, they don't have the jobs, and aren't making that kind of money. I guess my kids were lucky in that they were able to do that. So I completely said, you now learn how to live on your own.
I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you calling. And I especially appreciate how nice you were to call me an enabler, call me out on the radio. So thank you. But you're right.
You're welcome.
I can agree with you. You're right. I'm enabling the activity, which just pisses me off to do that. But I wish I could get my wife on page with that, and it is what it is. And I don't think that's a good question. Am I that unique that I'm alone, or are there other parents like that? I'm curious. How many of you listening are in the same boat as Trevor, where you literally have said, no, you've got to be accountable for your actions, and if you don't have it, you're not getting it, and you're not spending it, versus those who have been in a position like me where you're a bailer outer. I'd love to hear your input. As a parent, which side of that fence are you on, and how do you divvy it up? I want to hear from you. Pick up a phone and call me at 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Trevor just very nicely called me an enabler, and he's right. By encouraging it, by paying the bill, by not saying, screw you, you're on your own to my daughter, it just reinforces that I'm a bailer outer. My real problem is Mrs. Westside Jeff. It's a whole different story. I'd love to hear from you at 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up across social media on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram at Westside Jeff. I'm Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crocker, News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. 30 years. It's been 30 years since food, meaning grocery store food and restaurant food, has eaten up or taken this much of your income. It's been 30 years since that's happened. Last time Americans spent this much money, a percentage of their income, on food, George H.W. Bush was in the White House, Terminator 2 Judgment Day was in theaters, and C+C Music Factory was rocking the Billboard charts. See, eating continues to cost more and more than ever before, and even as overall inflation has eased from blistering pace of consumers endured throughout 2022 and 2023, the last 2 years, prices at restaurants and other eateries were up 5% last month compared to a year ago, while grocery store costs are up 1.2% over the same period a year ago. So we're spending more of our income. When you take a look at your annualized income and the amount, or your monthly income, and take a look at how much you're spending on food at grocery stores and in restaurants, it's been 30 years since that's been the case. What that says is our incomes have not gone up at the same level that the cost of groceries and food have. I learned a hard, valuable lesson about that in the last 2 weeks. My youngest daughter, Sydney, lives in Knoxville, Tennessee, up in Knoxville. And a couple of weeks ago, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, a significant snowstorm went through Knoxville. If you know anything about Knoxville, it's in an area that typically doesn't get a lot of snow. They got like 6 inches of snow, I think it was, and almost shut the city down. They don't have snow removal equipment, so literally it was a level whatever snow emergency, and the mayor and everybody said no driving on the highways. So she couldn't go to work for a couple of days. And as if you've ever lived in a snow belt, you know the term white death. Forecasters project this coming. They say it's going to be a horrible storm, and you got to prepare for that, so get to the grocery stores. Well, what do? Everybody goes to grocery stores and you buy them out. I've been in a grocery store before at the very tail end of that buying spree when there's almost nothing left on the shelves. It's the most eerie feeling in the world to be in a grocery store and walk around and see almost totally empty shelves. It reminds you of a store that literally is about ready to close and go out of business, and they're about ready to shut the doors and lock them up and go home. That's what it looks like. So I get my credit card bill. I'm looking through my credit card statement. I see $590 spent at Kroger up in Knoxville. I call my wife and say, Mrs. Westside Jeff, you haven't been to Knoxville in the last week. I haven't either. Somebody's hacked our credit card. She said, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. That's our daughter. And I went, what? And she said, well, she's working 2 or 3 jobs, all kind of part-time jobs, doesn't have a big-time professional career. Her and her roommate went to the grocery store. They had no money left to spend. They needed groceries for a week, so they used her credit card. And I'm like, did we approve that? It's one thing if you call me in advance, say, hey, Dad, I'm out of money, and here's my scenario, and so on and so on. Here's what I need. It's another thing for it just to happen and me to find out afterwards. It pissed me off. Totally pissed me off. And what pissed me off is the wife knew about it, and she didn't say much about it. So you can officially call me bail or outer. It's a part of parenting I never expected in my life. I'd never expected to have a 26-year-old and a 23-year-old out on their own have to still cover their expenses and be a bail or outer, be the person to bail them out. So I asked questions about, are you a bail or outer? What point in time do you stop bailing out? At what point in time have you not had to do that anymore? I talked to another guy earlier this week that said, Jeff, my son is 30 and I'm a bailer outer. I had to pay his car insurance because he didn't have enough money for that. Comes back to the story I mentioned about, and that is it's been 30 years since a food ate up this much of your income. Took a call a moment ago from Trevor from Southlake, that very nicely called me an enabler. He never said enabler. He said he's got 4 kids, 28, 27, 26, and 23. And his rule along with his wife was once you hit 21, you're on your own. If you can't afford what you're doing, then don't do it. Don't overspend. Be responsible. Take accountability. Learn to be an adult. So he went off and told me all about that, and I laughed all the way through the call. And at the end of the call, I said, Trevor, I think you very nicely just called me an enabler. And he said, well, I did. And he's right. Because as long as I encourage that activity, my daughter's not going to learn this long, hard life lesson. So my question to you as a parent, what point in time do you stop doing that? How do you do that? How do you stop being a bailer outer? I'm officially a bailer outer. I want to hear your comments on this. 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Like Amanda calling from Plano. Amanda, thanks for calling. You're on with Westside Jeff on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Thanks for calling.
You're welcome. You are not a bailer outer. I will
need
tell
somebody in
you,
my defense.
without throwing my age under the bus, my dad, to this day, if I called him and said, I need, my dad will jump and give. No questions asked.
That's what dads do.
My mom, on the other hand, would ask questions and go, maybe. But my dad...
Well, that's what I would
never.
do. I'm your mom. I'm the one that would... I'm like Trevor. I'm quite honestly, Amanda, I'm the one that would normally say, no thanks. But
she wouldn't say no. She would make me suffer a little bit, but she would give it to me. And I'm the same way. My kids, if my kids would call me right this second and go, I would give them the last $5 in my pocket with no questions asked.
So at what point in time, Amanda, do we go from a parent as enabling to providing for her? Where do you draw that line? Do you ask if your kid wanted the last $5 out of your pocket, you'd give it to him? I get it. I would too, quite honestly. But what point in time do you ask questions of how you're spending your money and being responsibility? To Trevor's point about accountability, about being an adult, where do you draw that line? How do you talk me through it?
You really can't. I mean, it's a personal decision. But, I mean, now I would not give, if my daughters would call me and go, I want it for something stupid. Yeah, no. You want a bill paid? I'll pay your bill.
What if her bill was about 5 pairs of Lululemons?
Oh, that wouldn't happen. I would pay her electric bill. I'd pay her gas bill. I would, DoorDash her some food, but I would not. No. But my kids also, like yours and like his, they have jobs and they do provide for themselves and, but everybody runs into a hard time. Everybody's, that I lived in Ohio. So white death, I get it. And it's not easy. But no, you were not an enabler. You're just being a dad.
Amanda. Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate you bailing me out. I appreciate you making.
Always.
Amanda, thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of the show. And thank you for the parenting advice. I got to agree with Trevor, though. Anytime you say, I got suckered in this one, Amanda. Thank you very much for calling. I appreciate you listening. Again, if you want to weigh in on this, 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. I wonder, if my wife were a little more spine strong, there's a side of me that wanted to call a credit card company and tell them to deny it because I never authorized it. And then create, like you just said, Amanda, make my daughter squirm. I'm not trying to be an idiot about this with my kid, but I'm with Trevor. You know what? Be an adult, make adult decisions. Make a decision to spend X versus I have to. I'd like to go on. I'm an avid golfer. My best friend lives up in Pinehurst, North Carolina. I'd like to fly up to Pinehurst, spend a week and play golf with him. Every round of golf I would spend would, golf course and caddy and stuff like that be $100 and some. But that would mean I'd have to take $100 and some per round, call it $400 or $500 from somewhere else. So I'd have to suffer somewhere else. It's no different than what you do. It's no different than what we all do. At some point in time, I have to say to my daughter, you know what? Spend less here so you can spend it there. It's a bailer outer. I was bailing her out. Sucks. Horrible. It's a parenting. When do you enable? When do you bail them out? Great conversation to have. Love to have your input. Weigh in at Westside Jeff on social media. I'm at Facebook and X, Instagram, at Westside Jeff. Tell me how you feel. What do you think? Bailing out. Bailer outer. Things are expensive. Less money to spend than ever before. How do you teach your kids to be accountable? Trevor just called me out, called me an enabler in a very nice way. And Trevor, I appreciate you doing that. Or you can pick up the phone and call me at 800-288-9227. That's 800-288-9227. That spells WBAP. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. In for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. I appreciate Amanda calling me. Amanda, thank you for calling in and weighing in on that and saying that Westside Jeff is not a bailer outer. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. We're talking about, my name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff sitting in for Chris Crocker. Talking about, shared a story that I saw, economy story. It's been 30 years since you and I are spending the percentage of the amount of our incomes these days on food in grocery stores and in restaurants. I saw a story about 2 weeks ago that the McDonald's CEO promises affordability after backlash over $18 Big Mac combos and $6 hash browns. Now, I don't go to McDonald's. I love McDonald's, but I haven't been there forever because they're just, as you get older, you just have to realize you got to make decisions. It's about choices. And as I get older, I realize that eating McDonald's probably isn't good for my body. I love their French fries. They have the best soda in the world. Their Diet Coke is the bomb. But if I go McDonald's, I'm going to get a couple large fries and probably a apple turnover, cherry turnover or something. And then I'm going to want a Big Mac. And the amount of calories to put in my body, that my daily allotment of calories going in just one meal from a Big Mac, a fries, and a soda, probably not a good idea. So the story out of McDonald's is the CEO admitted on their quarterly call, admitted the Burger Giant's sales have taken a hit as jacked up menu prices have turned off customers and signaled the chain plans to focus on affordability this year. Chicago-based fast food behemoth McDonald's, which has lately taken heat over a Big Mac combo meal priced at nearly $18, said its global same-store sales in the last quarter had grown just 3.4%, falling short of the 4.7% Wall Street expected. So even McDonald's is feeling it. Their prices are too high. The CEO said, I think what you're going to see as we head into 2024 is probably more attention to what I would describe as affordability. McDonald's chief executive Chris Kempczik, I think it is, said on an earnings call just a couple weeks ago. In particular, low-income customers making less than $45,000 per year have largely stopped ordering from McDonald's. Pummeled by inflation, they're eating at home more frequently as grocery prices have come down, they say, across the country. But that's not the fact. The fact is grocery prices haven't come down. They just haven't kept pace with fast food restaurants and other restaurants. The story is that it's been 30 years since our food budget has eaten up the amount of income that it's eating up right now. Eating continues to cost more, even as overall inflation has eased over the last 2 years. In restaurants and other eateries, prices were up 5.1% last month in January compared to a year ago, while grocery stores are up 1.2%. Food, dining is getting more expensive. I guess that's good for my belly. I'm not a fat guy. I don't need to lose weight. I think I'm 5'10", probably 168 pounds, maybe 167. I actually got tabbed from my insurance company 2 years ago. I got a call from the nurses that said they put me on nurses' calls. I'm like, what? I'll tell you that story on the other side of the top of the hour break. So in about 10 minutes. Yes, I got a call from the nurses' call, folks. Those, when you sign up for health insurance, they say that if and when somebody calls you from the insurance company, you have to take those calls, and they put me on a set of calls to keep my insurance. Otherwise, you're going to kick me off or charge me a significant premium above and beyond that. I'll tell you what that's about again after top of the hour news. That's coming up. Give me 10 minutes and I'll tell you about that. But my daughter, back to my original story, my youngest daughter, Sydney, lives in Knoxville, up in Knoxville, Tennessee. There was white death coming through a couple weeks ago. She was out of money. Without my knowledge, she goes to Kroger. She uses my credit card, spends $590 on groceries for her and her roommate because of white death, and she was out of money. And Mrs. Westside Jeff, when I asked her about it, said, why did somebody spend $590 on her credit card? I was about ready to call the credit card company and say, my credit card was hacked, dispute the charges, close the credit card, and send me a new credit card. That happens about twice a year, seems like these days. She said, well, I've been meaning to tell you about that, Mrs. Westside Jeff said. You see, our daughter, Sydney, was out of money, didn't have enough, White death coming through. Went to the grocery store to cover expenses for 2 weeks, or grocery for a week. She can't work for a couple of days because the city's shutting down. And I said, so why do we have to pay for it? Took a call a little while ago from Trevor from Southlake that said, in a very nice way, Jeff, you're a bailer outer. He's right. It's a bailer outer. Amanda called and said, no, Jeff, you're not a bailer outer. It's part of being a parent. My question to you is, when do you differentiate between the two? When do you stop being a provider for and become a bailer outer? I'm talking to more parents than ever before who are saying, yes, Jeff, you're right. I'm a bailer outer. I'm the emergency fund guy. And my kids in their early 20s and their late 20s, even into the 30s, can't afford X, Y, and Z, so I have to cover it for them. They don't have to, but they do. So I get a message. You can hit me up online, social media, at Westside Jeff on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram. Or you can pick up the phone, call 800-288-9227. Jim says, Jeff, I'm sorry you can't call at this moment. However, your discussion of bailer outer, here's my question. Why are you bailing out your daughter's roommate as well? Jim, that's a good question. I'm a dumb idiot for that. We'll talk about that off top of the hour news. I'm a bailer outer. The name is Jeff, Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.